Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Joe Dirt Adventures for the average Joe on the dirt cheap. So today we're going to be installing a Lunchbox style locker in the front diff, which is Dana 30. And here it is. So it's power trax, lock right, it's for the front, it's for the Dana 30. I got my gasket, my oil, and I also went ahead and I got one of these little diff guard. It's probably half the price of replacing the actual cover, so we're gonna go with that. And then sticking to the true Joe Dirt style, we found this locker used on Marketplace very briefly. Some guy bought it for his wife's Jeep. She daily drives it in the winter and didn't like the way it acted, so let's get started. You want to make sure that you keep these little tags, guys. I mean, you don't have to, but it's got the information for your diff on there, gear ratio, and I believe it's just a bunch of serial numbers. I'm sure they mean something, but keep that. Sometimes the RTV just holds these things in place. You have to give them a little tap with a mallet or oh, she's really stuck. Alright, she's coming loose here, guys. There we go. There's some fluid. There we go. We'll just let it drain there a bit before we pop it fully off. Gotta love that smell. I mean, it's dirty, but it doesn't appear to have any metal in it or anything. There she is. Alright, now we're just going to remove the brake calipers. Just like that. Pretty sturdy. I'm just going to leave it like that actually. And we got to remove the outer hub nut. works great for extra leverage. Sometimes these bolts for the wheel bearing or hub can be a little pesky. I got the 2 out and I'm working on the last one now. And then we should be able to pull the wheel hub off. There we go. Alright, so now it's time to just repeat the process on this side. Pull the caliper, rotor, wheel nut, and the bearing, and then we can pull the axle out. Okay, so we got the axles pulled out, about 6 inches. There's no C-clips on this one, so it makes it easier. Now we gotta remove the bearing caps. Alright, so I just went ahead and punched a mark on the driver's side, and I punched 2 marks on the passenger side so that we don't mix the caps up. Make sure you keep all these in order. Exactly where they came from is exactly how they go back together. Alright, so now that we got our bearing caps off, marked, we know which side's driver, passenger, up, down, all that. I just left the bolts in there so that they stay the same. Now we're going to pull the carrier out. Probably don't want to do it like that. All right, we got the carrier out. Now we got to get the ring gear bolts off, and yeah, might be a little tricky without a vise, but I'll find a way. All right, we got all our ring gear bolts loose. I'm just gonna pull them all off now. Alright, so now there's this little pin in here that we gotta pop through. Pin. Alright, there's our pin. Okay, so now you should be able to just rotate these spider gears. They're gonna fall out, but there's gonna be washers on each side. Just make sure that you pay attention to how many are there and just keep them all the same. Make sure it goes back in the same way with the locker. Alright, so here's the locker. You want to take your thrust washers, put them on here like this. I'm going to use a bunch of grease on there just to hold it in place. Grease will be your friend here. The grease will also help with the lubrication before the gear oil starts to circulate. So, plus kind of makes everything sticky and holds it all together. Let's put that on. There we go. Let's do the same with the other side. Sorry guys, don't mind the Taylor Swift in the background, it's just my kids. Just place that in the carrier. Alright, so now you want to take the gear part of the locker, and you got these little windows here. You want to pack them with grease so that you can stick your pins in. I've already got one in there. The grease just holds it all in place. Put your spacers in there. There you go. Now that we got those pins in there, I'm gonna go ahead and stick a screwdriver in there and slide them up and down. And then there's some springs we got to put in. And we'll go ahead and put these little springs in. So there's two. There's a small spring inside of the bigger spring. I'm going to put some grease on these two just so that they stay in there. You should be able to just put it in with your finger most of the way. And then just make sure it's fully seated. Push it in. There we go. There's one. There we go. Alright guys, so I think what we can do now is we can go ahead and stick our pin back in. There we go. Now that pin's back in. I'm gonna put this one back in. It's just a matter of getting everything lined up. Alright, we got our pins back in and all lined up. And we just gotta put our ring gear back on. Which we have to make sure we get lined up exactly the way it was. I made some marks on it right there and right there. Exactly like that. Perfect. Alright, I got everything cleaned out. I just threw the carrier back in. I'll throw the caps back on. Alright guys, we got her done. We got the locker installed. The only thing I didn't have time to do today is clean the diff cover and give it a shot of paint, put her back on, fill it up with fluid. That's all we got to do. And we're locked in the front. So stay tuned, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll get that done. All right, good morning guys. We're back here, we got our coffee and we're gonna get this thing done. Oh, that's gonna look pretty good actually. Alright, now I gotta put our rough country diff skid on using the supplied bolts. Alright, now we go torque these down to 35 foot-pounds. Alright guys, we got the bolts all torqued up, and now we're going to fill it up with some fluid. Might need to put some more in here. Oh, there we go. I think she's full, guys. And we're just gonna make sure this one's torqued to 25. There we go. Alright guys, that wraps up the installation of our Lunchbox locker and our front Dana 30 diff in the 96 Jeep Grand Cherokee Cheap Jeep. And I'm just about to take it for a test drive, make sure everything's functioning properly. Let's go for a ride and test this thing out. Alright guys, everything seems to be working good. We're locked in the front. You can definitely tell when you got it in 4 or 4 low and you turn in the corner. I'll show you guys here. Let's pop her into 4 low. Yeah, there it is, locking up. I can feel it. So yeah, I didn't notice any difference driving on the highway, but I was just in 2-wheel drive. So I mean, if I was in 4, that might be a different story, but I don't usually drive this thing on the highway in 4 ever. So don't see that being an issue. This is the trail rig, and that's gonna help us out huge. And if I like it, I think I'm gonna go ahead and put one in the rear too, one for the Dana 35. Stay tuned, because the next video in this Jeep, we're gonna be on the trails testing it out. So if you like this video, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.